FEMA has already spent more than $200 million in federal aid to help the victims of Hurricane Helene in several different states. So I'm going to explain where that money is going. Plus, I'm going to explain how much the federal government has been spending on natural disasters. You're probably going to be shocked. So as of today's preliminary report, FEMA says it has already spent $210 million in federal aid to support survivors of Helene. That is spread across several states: Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. FEMA says there are nearly 7,000 personnel from across the federal workforce deployed to those affected areas. FEMA says it has shipped 15.6 million meals, almost 14 million liters of water, 157 generators, and more than 505,000 tarps. So if you want specifics for each state, I will email the FEMA document out to you tonight in my Newsgirl News Roundup email, so make sure you sign yourself up. Now, obviously, this is just the beginning. Disaster recovery takes time, so this is certainly not going to be the last we hear about all the money FEMA is spending. And that begs the question, how much is this going to cost? Well, right now, early estimates put Helene recovery anywhere between $30 billion and $100 billion. But it is just way too early to say for sure. But we can safely say it's going to cost many billions of dollars. And here's the thing, Helene isn't the only multi-billion dollar disaster the United States government is currently dealing with. In 2023 alone, the United States experienced 28 separate weather and climate disasters that cost at least $1 billion each, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Here's a map of all those disasters. You can see the Maui wildfires right there, Hurricane Idalia right there, and then all these other disasters in between. Each one of those dots represents at least $1 billion. Plus, there's a bunch of other disasters that totaled hundreds of millions of dollars that didn't even qualify to make it onto the map. Now, all of those disasters total in 2023 came out to $93 billion. Do you have any idea how much money that is? And in case it's not abundantly clear to you, those are your tax dollars and my tax dollars going to help the people affected and help the local and state recovery and cleanup efforts for those disasters. Now, as I told you in this video last week, Congress just replenished FEMA's $20 billion disaster recovery fund. And a lot of people were asking, why did that fund need to be replenished? The answer is because of this and all the other disasters that we've seen in 2024 and all the years prior to 2023. Recovery takes years. Rebuilding takes years. That means years of funding. Now, speaking of Congress, let's talk about how that money gets there. When it comes to the federal government's spending, even for disaster recovery, the United States Constitution says Congress controls the purse strings. Not the president, not the vice president, not the governor of a state. It's Congress's responsibility to figure out how much money every federal agency and department receives and how that money is allowed to be spent, including FEMA disaster money, including that $750 emergency money for victims. So as I told you in this video, yes, Congress did approve hundreds of millions of dollars in 2023 and 2024 for FEMA to give to state and local agencies to deal with migrants in those areas, as I'm sure you heard the press secretary say in that viral video. But that was Congress's choice. Democrats and Republicans voted for that funding. And as I said in the video, just because Congress allocated that particular money for migrants does not mean that they took it out of the budget for disaster recovery. That's not how the federal budget works. There are different pots of money. Each department and agency has their own pot of money. And then even within those departments and agencies, there are different pots of money for different programs and activities. Those pots of money generally do not cross. And lastly, if you don't like the way Congress is choosing to allocate money, writing some nonsense in my comment section is not going to change anything. I don't work for Congress, but I will give you a little piece of advice. It's an election year. So if you don't like the way Congress spends or allocates money, call your lawmaker. Stop wasting time complaining on the internet. It's getting you nowhere.